we are here. I'm very excited here with Tony Mamo, and we're talking throttle bodies today, which I never thought I'd be discussing, but I purchased a 2025 Z06 and I had a 2024. In some of my other videos, you understand, I sold it, regretted it, and now going to do the same thing I did in a past video. So one of the things I did is installed new throttle bodies with an Venturi cold air intake, and I loved it. It was fantastic. So I told myself that I'm going to do the same thing again. And as I purchased the competition, I watched a video on YouTube that introduced me to Tony's product, and I purchased that also because I'm very interested in the thought process and if those results are somewhat accurate or how we want to discuss those. So before we get started down that path, I wanted to introduce you again, Tony Mamo. And can you give us a little bit of your background and exactly how you got into this and why this product, in your mind is so superior? So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
It's a long story. I mean, I've been into cars since I was 18 years old, even younger. I got a ride in a buddy's hot rod Chevelle when I was 15. I had no background in performance, anything, and I was just blown away with this guy's car, and I knew like this is what I wanted to do, kind of thing. I mean, that's kind of what got me into the hobby, got me interested, and by the time I was 18, I actually bought that Chevelle. That was my first car, so you know school grades tanked. It was all about the car. I just loved it, and I was modding it at a very young age. And I'm 63, right? So this is a long time ago. There's no internet. There's none of that. The only way you learn is to go out. Got to get out there and do stuff. You
Right.
learn from some of your buddies talking and this and that. Maybe you read a little on some of the magazines. Back then, even the magazines weren't that good. So a lot of hands-on stuff. Doing this in the early '80s type of thing. Late '70s, early '80s. So anyway, just got into it. I was a complete junkie with this stuff. Really always loved it. And just not to take up this entire day talking about my whole background, we'll jump forward like 20 years, 1996 or so. I'm into the hobby pretty hardcore. And I saw an article on how to build a flow bench. Carcraft actually had done the article in the early 90s. A buddy of mine had told me about it. So it was like a 3-part series, and talked about how to build a flow bench. And it was a good article, but if you really wanted to build a flow bench, it definitely had some things that were missing. It was pretty in depth though, but not only like I knew that before I embarked on it, and I needed more info. I ended up calling up Superflow, spoke to Harold Bettis at Superflow. Couldn't even believe the guy took my phone call. I'm just some Yahoo on the phone wanting to build a flow bench. I don't know if you're familiar with Harold Bettis, but he was like the man at Superflow for many decades. A great guy. Got a kick out of the fact that some guy wants to build his own flow bench, and I called, and he basically answered all the questions that I needed answered to feel comfortable enough to go ahead and build this thing.
Okay.
Took me about 6 months, built the flow bench. Didn't even know if it was going to work. Hoped it was going to work. It did work. It worked fantastic, actually. I was able to calibrate it to an SF600, which is like the industry standard, and it was great. It was everything I'd hoped it would be. I had called Harold a few times along the way because as I was building it, I needed some information. He was always super cool. I sent him a bottle of something. He could tell you what I sent you. I don't remember what I sent him, I should say. And ended up meeting him in person at the trade shows because ultimately I got into this industry professionally. That started in '97. I worked at Scott Schaffroff Racing Engines. They're a big block Chevy engine builder. I started doing a lot of their cylinder heads and stuff like that. He didn't really have an in-house porting guy. So just trying to give you my quick background.
Right.
So, but I was, spent a ton of time kind of self-educating myself on the flow bench as well, too, just trying everything. And if you're into anything and you're passionate about it, you tend to excel, right?
Right.
Yeah, you figure it out.
Yeah.
So, and then, of course, everybody local to me, all the local street community and racing guys, they wanted to they found out that I had a flow bench. Oh, what do these heads flow? What do these heads flow? Can you pick them up? Can you improve them? So, started doing a lot of local stuff. And then fast forward again to 2001, started talking to Rick Sperling at Airflow Research, AFR. I don't know if you're familiar with that company. It's a big cylinder head company. They've been around for like 50 years. I told them about a big block Chevy head that I designed. And we started chatting about it. I met him at the PRI show because now I was working for Scott Shafroff then. So I went to the trade show with him and ended up talking to Rick at AFR over there. And long story short, again, just trying to condense this all, he pitched me on, working for AFR, moved me across the country to be the head of R&D for the Big Block Chevy program. And I ultimately decided to take that on. It was a tough decision because things were going well for me back in New York. I enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed working for Scott. The move to California had a lot of question marks. Will it work out? It's a big move, right? But it worked out fantastic. So I ended up going out to Airflow Research, and I designed their line of big block Chevy heads in '01, and it kind of went on from there. So I've got basically I worked from 2001 to 2015 at Airflow Research, doing all their product design, cylinder heads, manifolds, anything that moved air through it.
Right.
Did all their R&D, dyno testing, etc. And then, part of my business, which I started in 2015, Mamo Motorsports, I was doing throttle bodies before that as well. Anything that flows air, right? That's what I do. So, throttle bodies is just the best low buck, 10-minute install. Well, not in your car, though.
Right. A little bit different, right?
A little bit different in the C8 Z06. In most cars, the TB is like the first thing everybody should do. You should pick up throttle response, tip-in throttle. You pick up some horsepower. It's just how the car drives so much nicer for, under $500 typically if it's a single TB application. Obviously, you guys have two with the C8 Z06.
Right.
But it's just the best upgrade anybody can do. And I've done a lot of throttle bodies. And once I took on my business, I started doing a lot more throttle bodies.
Right.
And the one throttle body out there in the GM community, at least, that was really sorry was the LT throttle bodies, starting with the LT1 in 2014. What happened was, am I getting too long here?
No, you're great.
Okay. A buddy of mine bought I want to say it was a 2016 LT4 Corvette Z06, and I drove his car, and it just felt like the biggest pooch, just off idle and just the low throttle position. When you got into the throttle, it moved out nice, but it just felt doggy. And he's like, and I said something to him, and he said, "Yeah." He's like, I hate how this thing feels. He's like, sometimes I've been driving a stick for 40 years. I said, I almost stall it because I said, I think there's an issue with the throttle body in this thing. It seems like the throttle body is, just not working properly. I said, we should really have a look at it. So we got back to his shop. He owns a diesel performance company, so he's another performance guy. He couldn't wait he's like, oh, let's just look at it now. So he ripped off the cold air intake, and I looked at the TB, and I'm like, I couldn't believe what I saw. It was so poorly designed. I mean, it's sitting on your shelf there, right? You see all the sharp lips and bumps. The throttle blade is buried in aluminum. So as you're giving it throttle, it's moving, but it's not uncovering any air until you get it past that big hump of crap that's in the way in that factory TB. As you can look at right there, you can show, you can show the audience whatever. So as soon as I saw his TB, you have to get it close up. Yeah, the giant hump there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So and where that throttle blade is sitting is what I call the rest position. You can actually close it more. If you push it closed, you'll see it actually closes more, right? So my point is that even in the rest position, you can see there's barely any airflow that can get past that blade because it's all buried in that aluminum, that hump of aluminum there, that ridge. Right. So anyway, I looked at this thing and I said, let me take this thing home. I did some quick porting on it. I didn't want to overdo it because I didn't want to give it back and have the car not run. So I did something semi-conservative that I knew was going to help him out. And as soon as we put it in the car, he drove it. He's like, "Oh my God, this is fantastic." So I said to him, I said, "Hey, just FYI, I didn't go like anywhere near max effort. I didn't want to give you a TB that didn't work. So I said, if you want, I'd like to go back in it and do a little bit more." So long story short, I went back in that thing like 3 times. I kept further porting it, and then by the time we were done, he just absolutely loved it. And I drove it after we were done, and the difference was amazing. Right. And in fact, that was the first time that I said, I'm going to offer this as a money-back guarantee. Is anybody that buys this TB that doesn't like it or doesn't want it, the guy's an idiot. It just transformed the car. Like, because again, in this industry, very few people, if any, do money-back guarantees on new parts that they install. It's just not common in this industry at all. And it was just one of those things that I'm like, it's an inexpensive part to begin with. And like I said, if anybody sent it back, it's like, how many times could that happen? I mean, they'd be crazy to send it back. Right. So that's when I started, and then I got on the boards on the Corvette forum, and I started talking about it. I posted pictures of stock, my ported TB, which back then were all done by hand. These are now done by CNC, but it was similar shapes and similar performance advantages, etc.
Right.
So that's how I started doing a lot of these LT throttle bodies, and it is to this day, it's still the worst factory GM design TB I have literally ever seen. It's that bad. I mean, you just look at these big lumps and sharp edges, and it's just
Right.
like, I don't even know how that got the nod on a performance car. What
Right.
that TB was a TB that GM had in stock, very little money in it. It was already a design TB that they had that went on trucks. And then when they came out with the new C7, they put that truck TB, quote unquote, that TB right there, onto these performance cars. First of all, even on a truck, I say that's a piece of shit TB. Excuse my
Right.
French. The way it's designed,
Right.
it's just so bad. I don't even
Right.
care if it's on a truck. It has the same problems on a truck. No, you have that tip in leg. You got that leg in the throttle until you get into the throttle heavy. So you
Right.
don't have that nice resolution. You don't have that nice responsiveness. So even on a truck, it's still lame. But my point is, if a guy buying a truck isn't looking for the real performance, it's a real crime putting that TB on a performance vehicle.
Yeah, it's shocking because I just found out that it's actually the same one from the C7. And
Same one.
yeah, what I don't understand, again, there's a lot of about the car I don't understand why it comes from the factory the way it does, and that's
Cost.
a
Cost.
video for another time. But
Yeah, yeah.
with this, an engine that they created from scratch,
Yep.
that they would put an old C7 throttle body makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Let me tell you something. I thought for years they were going to come out with a new TB because it was
Right,
so bad. And then part of me was like, well, that would suck because I sell these like hotcakes.
right, right,
So in a way, it's like, but I was like, so because I've always been a GM guy. Like I said, my first car was a Chevelle. I've just been Chevrolet or GM. I have a Cadillac CTSV. I love that. Right, GM
right,
performance. I just I do anything. I've designed Ford heads and this and that and whatever. But I'm just at heart, I'm just a GM fan. That's mostly the cars. My performance cars, the GM cars.
right.
So it just bothered me that they had this really crap design TB, and I'm like, I thought for sure they're going to definitely come out with a new TB. They did not. When the C8s were being announced, I'm like, oh, they'll definitely do the new TB for the C8s.
Right.
No, and I'm talking pre C8s. I'm talking regular C8, the Stingray.
Stingray, yeah.
I couldn't believe that the same TB went in a C8. I was stunned.
Yeah.
Again,
Well,
at the end of the
again,
day,
but
I'm like, good
good for you
business.
though.
Right.
Right.
It's
So,
crazy. And then the fact that it's on the C8 Z06.
yeah.
So that TB, for your customers' benefit, is exact same housing bore as a C8, as a C7, that crappy shit design. The only thing different in a C8 Z06, and you can show them right there, it has a front plug versus a side plug.
Right. Right. And this is what
Well,
you're
all of
talking
yours are
about.
going to be yours is going to be in the front. But if you look at that same TB for a C7, it's got the same. It just has a different plastic connector that goes into the side.
Right.
The housing is actually the same. It's still got that really inefficient, ineffective design.
Okay. So that brings me to where we're at today, right? So you brought up a good point just a little bit ago. I'm the guy with my Z06. I'm not going to get into tuning. I'm not going to mess with the computer. I love the car the way it is. Now, I am the guy though that will spend the money on some things that can improve horsepower and performance without voiding my warranty and doing crazy things to my car, right? So, one of the first upgrades that I did in my car, besides, basically aesthetic things to it, I can't stand the way the wheels are and the wheel well and things like that. I installed the new throttle bodies, plus the Venturi cold air intake. Okay. So I felt like that was a budget ish, not the intake, that's ridiculous, but a good price point to improve performance. And the throttle bodies, everyone's like, do that first. Like, that's the thing you got to do. So, and looking at these three throttle bodies from just the eye test, there is a big difference between all three of them, really. I mean, your design thought process, the competition's design thought process, and then obviously OEM. So at the time when I got the competition and installed that in my car, I really didn't know. Obviously, I didn't know about you. I didn't know any other throttle bodies existed because everybody was pushing the competition. Everybody. I mean, all the YouTube videos, some of the
Yep.
Corvette only kind of stores were pushing it, and just said it was a great pair with the Venturi. So someone like me who loves performance, loves the car, I really didn't know. I had no idea. And now that my new car came, I'm going to do some upgrades, and the throttle bodies and the cold air intake are definitely going to happen this weekend, actually. And I was set to go with the competition, but I watched a video on YouTube just to try to educate myself more. By chance, I came across a video that had your throttle body versus the competition, two of their versions that they have. And I was kind of blown away with the results. So it got me thinking. I reached out to you, you and I talked, and next thing you know, I have a set of, your throttle bodies that are going to be installed on my car. So when I look at yours versus the competition, I got educated a little bit on their thought process. I mean, the machining of yours is so clean, and what they call nozzles, it doesn't have any of the nozzles. It appears it's wider. It looks like you machined it down more throughout. So tell me a little bit about why you chose this design versus how the competition chose their design, if you will.
Look, I'm an airflow guy. All right. I've been designing airflow products for 3 decades professionally, over 3 decades at this point. So the flow bench leads you to what's right and what's wrong. You want smooth laminar flow, the least disruptions possible. If you look at what I designed there, and there's a caveat to that. So you've got that, yeah, you've got that hump that's still there, like that giant hump from the factory that I much more reduce and profile and contour. You have to have some of that there. If
Right.
you go and I just whack that out to make it flow the most amount of air, you'll throw a code like that.
Right.
Right. So not happy, no computer happy, meaning no customer happy.
Right.
Right. So there are limitations to what you can do. Right. So what I've done is I perfected, that contouring of that hump to get it to be the smoothest, allowing it to flow the most amount of air while still keeping it restrictive enough to not move too much air where the computer says, hey, at this throttle position and this load, I should only see X amount of grams per cylinder. So, and if it sees more than it's programmed for by GM, that's your code. So a code isn't like, oh, your car is going to blow up or this TB is going to explode. A code is just saying, hey, we're seeing more air than GM programmed us to see. There's a problem. Something's wrong. The computer thinks that something is wrong because it's out of bounds, that it has in its set parameters. You with me?
Yep.
So, I have to calculate that into how I'm designing the TB. And there's only one way to know how to really do that. It's by pushing it a little bit too far. So, there's some, local test cars that I work with to actually do that on purpose to see how much I can get away with before the computer says, not happy.
Right.
So the way I'm designing that TB, if you look at it, it's pretty obvious that it is a more streamlined design. And it does flow more air. And my competitor could say, I'm biased, whatever. Take it to an independent flow bench. My TB does flow more air. And theirs picks up a lot. I'm not going to knock what they've done. My TB flows about 50 CFM more than theirs. A stock one flows around 900. Theirs flows about 1050. Mine flows about 1100.
Okay.
But it's all done in a much different fashion as you've perceived by looking at it.
Right.
At the end of the day, and on the flow bench also, again, you got to remember, I have thousands of flow bench hours. I airflow research for 50 hours a week all I did every day of my life was design lines of cylinder heads for this company. And when I say a line, I'll design, let's say, a small block Ford. I have to design a 165, a 185, a 195, a 220. So I'm designing these heads, and these takes, a typical line of heads could take 6 months to a year, and it's just constant flow bench hours and this and that. And you just, when you work on a flow bench for thousands of hours over 20 something plus years, you gain a lot of knowledge, right?
Right. Right.
So, the approach that I take to that is, you got to have it laminar. If you look at the stock one, you look at the competitor's version, there's more lumps and bumps and disruptions. You can call them nozzles, call them whatever you want, but lumps and bumps disrupt flow, right? If you look at the approach that I take, it's a much more laminar, more aerodynamic approach, and it's also quieter on the flow bench, and that says a lot also.
So what you're referring to is in the back, the competition has bumps on there.
No, not even that. Like the shape of the front is it more? It's the way they have like now that's mine. See, mine's all smooth, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to pick up the other one to show. But they have like the different way. They've got these different like cross sectional areas. If you look at the front of their design in the housing.
Yes. Okay.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay. So again, it's a very different approach. I don't know how they got to that approach. All I know is what the flow bench guides what I do. Right. If it's not moving more air or moving less air, I'm going in the wrong direction. Right. So,
so
it's
okay.
been pretty.
And I'm glad we're going down this path, because there's a couple things that I just want to clarify on and that I just learned. So according to the video I watched, you have a brace across the front of yours. Okay. Which was said that makes it more stable, right?
What's that now? The throttle, the shaft?
Yeah, this crossbar here.
Yeah, I have two of them that are both machined down, so you're still getting the thin cross section when you open the throttle at wide open throttle.
Okay.
But you have really good support because you still have the throttle blade encapsulated between the two throttle shafts.
Okay.
So that's going to give you the most reliable, the most dependable situation. You're not just relying on the torque of the screw head to hold that throttle blade from any kind of like torsional loads. You have the entire throttle shaft that's crushing it between each side, but I've milled the shaft so that they have a smaller cross-sectional area.
Okay, so, and I'm going somewhere with this. Like, so this brace right here is not on the competition.
Right. They remove it to try to reduce the cross-sectional area.
Okay.
What I'm doing, see, I'm thinning both sides, and I'm still retaining that front strap.
Okay.
I'm going to call it a strap, call it a brace. It's the throttle shaft, right? I feel it is a more dependable, reliable unit because, now you have that whole strap on both sides that's keeping that throttle blade from moving or whatever, doing anything unwanted.
Right. So
where if you just have the screws in the front, what's really holding that is mostly the torque of just the screws. You don't have that shaft going across.
Of course. And I was told, and again, I'm glad we're doing this interview, is that their thought process is to remove it to allow more airflow while it's wide open.
Again, though, but also look at the back of theirs. They still have a full profiled back where I have a thinned, both of mine are thin. So at the end of the day, we have the same cross-sectional area in that one region of the TB, but I feel like mine is a better safety margin than the other design. That's just how I feel about it. Because I could easily just remove that front strap, but I don't want to.
Right. And it appears, again, from a simple eye test that, again, to your point, this looks sturdier. Like
100%.
It just feels that way. But when you open it, as opposed to when you open the competition, theirs is a little bit beefier in back.
Right.
So I guess, again, I don't have a millionth of the knowledge you have, but to me, it would appear that they're really bulky on the backside. So if they're claiming that the front side is less airflow, then shouldn't that be the same for the backside also?
Exactly. So if you really look at the thickness, I'm removing material from both sides. Also, you notice how I leave that extra material around the bolt hole so it has plenty of thread engagement. Look on the backside. You see that? That's something cool to show them. Yeah,
Yep.
I leave that. I leave them raised only around the bolt hole because I want to have all the thread engagement once again for reliability.
Right. Right. No,
Right.
that's
So
okay. So that makes a lot of sense. And so the next part, so I think we're good on that. I mean, definitely two different theories and it makes sense, right?
right.
The other part was, and again, help me understand. I'm just listening to you and I'm trying to understand. You said that the OEM throttle body was archaic and just terrible, right?
Horrible
So
design.
one of the things that was mentioned in that video is that the competition has like an outsourced outsourced outside, the mechanics are outsourced and
The
you're
whole TB is
using
outsourced, not just the electronics. That whole TB is not GM. It is not. In my
okay.
opinion, it's probably made overseas. It's just my opinion.
Okay. And you're using an OEM TB, right?
Correct.
I'm getting the lingo down. OEM
There you go.
TB and
Yeah,
changing
mine is a GM. It's got the same GM part number as what's on your stock TB.
right. So and then changing obviously the airflow portion of the TB.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm addressing all the deficiencies of the factory throttle housing
Okay.
horrible design, getting rid of all the chunks and lumps of aluminum and this, those physical steps. I assume in this video you'll have maybe some pictures that you really got to have like a still shot so they can really see the
Yes.
difference of stock because it's night and day difference.
Yeah, I will.
You don't have to be an airflow guy to look at one and look at mine and look at a stock one and be like, wow. I mean,
Okay.
it's just a giant improvement.
Exactly. And so again, I'm just clarifying when you say this OEM is junk, you're more about the housing, not so
Yes.
much. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Electronics, safety wise, it's great.
Yeah. I just
But
want to
the
clarify that
design,
for the
yeah,
people
yeah,
who
the
are
airflow,
watching that
yes,
because your
yeah,
first
no,
instinct is like, wait a minute, he said they're junk, but he uses the
right,
OEM throttle body
right, right.
to
No,
design
yeah,
this. Okay.
no, the electronics, the build quality, all of that's top shelf. The design, the throttle bore housing design, it looks like it was designed by someone that had no clue about airflow.
Right. I mean, this clearly, after researching and seeing this, and I'll show this again, this is the OEM, and you can see that
Yeah.
huge lip. It just looks very restrictive, right? It just looks like,
It disrupts airflow. When
right,
the air hits that wall, it ends up coming off on a tangent, shooting up into
right,
the throttle bore when it's open, and then that technically chokes out the available cross section that's even there. You follow
right,
that? Like it hits that big ledge, the air goes off that ledge kind of on an upward trajectory.
right. Such a difference. Like when I look at this and see this compared to stock OEM and you know, just how different those are in terms of just the body. I mean, it's amazing. Like
Yeah.
it just looks,
That's why when you
yeah,
put it on your car, you're going to be like, Yahoo. I mean, because it is a massive improvement. Like I said, it
right,
is the best low buck. Again, your car is a bitch to install compared to a normal car. Normal.
right,
Anything but a C8 Z06.
right,
Yeah, a typical front mount deal. You pop the hood. It's a worm clamp for the cold air intake, 4 bolts, and an electrical connector. It's literally a 10-minute job, right? The C8 with the rear engine and getting to it with the two of them, a little bit of a pain in the ass, but well
right.
worth it because the gains are just phenomenal. I mean, literally every C8 Z06 customer that I've had the liberty to speak to after the fact, they just love it to death, and you will as well.
Okay. And yeah, I'm excited about it. And for those people who are out there listening, if you're going to do the cold air intake, this is a no brainer because you have to
You're
literally
right there.
remove
Right, you're right
everything
there.
to
Right,
put it
and
in. Yeah.
honestly,
So it makes no sense. So,
did you do the cold air already?
oh, no, no, no. The car's brand new. The car has
Okay,
400
okay,
miles
okay.
on it. I
My
just
point
got it.
is,
Yeah. I did it. I had a 2024. This is a 2025 and I did it to my 2024. So I did the throttle bodies with the cold air intake, but I was getting ready to replicate that, and then I watched the video, and that's what got us to this point
Okay.
right here, is discussing this and what the difference
My
is.
point is that the TBs are actually more seat of the pants great feel than even the cold air intake. The cold air intake does boost things up a little bit. The TBs is a bigger wow factor. And I've talked to numerous customers that told me the same thing, that the first thing they did was a cold air, then they went down the throttle body road. So they did it in
Right.
stages. Like, you're going to get it all at once, so you're going to be really wowed.
Right.
But a lot of
Right.
other of my customers have done it where they've had the cold air in there already. They felt the gains. Now they're like itching for more. They saw a video or read somewhere about the throttle bodies, and now they're doing that. And
Right.
they told me after the fact, yeah, the TBs was definitely a more significant improvement. So you're gonna love them. Yeah,
Right.
you'll be
So
happy.
I'm kind of like a logistics person. Like I'm kind of like, I'm back there,
100%,
just
hundred
do it
percent.
all.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know why. Maybe just didn't know that you get a better TB. I'm not sure, but
Right.
I've had
Right.
numerous
And
customers go that way.
right. And most people, again, like myself, who don't know much, like I got to be honest, I didn't even know what a throttle body did or what it was until I really, met some people and started getting some understanding of it better. And then I was like, wait, this seems like the number one thing you should do,
It's
no
it's
matter what.
literally the
And
air valve for the engine in the C8 C06. You have two air valves basically, which is awesome. So
right.
also
Yeah. It just,
I have a feeling that, being that
go ahead.
there's two TBs on the C8 Z06, and obviously the engineers knew this, they probably the opening rates of those throttle bodies are probably pretty conservative. So now you have this poorly designed TB with lower opening rates because you have two of them per engine versus one per engine, right? So
Right.
you might technically have even more of a lag with the factory TBs because they're programmed. What the hell is this? Software update. Sorry, hang on.
It's all right. The joys of live
Yes.
interviewing.
So yeah. So my point is that you've got. So I wish I was there with you. I would show you I'd show you. But if you take that factory TB and you close the blade all the way to zero, right, and then you're opening, and you're looking through like at
Mhm.
something that's bright behind you, you'll see that you'll have very little light that's going through there until you really get that TB open a decent bit.
Right.
You like because you can see, you could go all the way to the close position, and there's like you can't see any light through, right? And then you go to the rest position, which
Yep.
is probably 20, 30 degrees, and there's still very little air. You notice there's no light still going through there.
Yep.
And then as you open
Right.
it more, you got to open it, open and open. And finally, as you start really opening that TB, then you finally start seeing some light go through there, which essentially light is the air I'm talking about, right? So where if
Exactly.
you look at mine,
No, it
if you
makes.
hold mine up to the light, even in the rest position, you're going to see more. You see
Oh
that?
yeah. Yep.
So, and then as soon as
Yep.
that starts opening just a little, you really start seeing some more airflow.
Right.
So,
No, it's. I can see it. Obviously, I hope the
yeah,
audience,
it's
but you
hard
can
to see
definitely see
without
it.
really seeing it, but it's
You're right.
hopefully they're getting what we're talking about.
Yes.
So, what this
Yeah.
thing is also going to give you, you're going to have a much more intuitive throttle, a more linear throttle. Because with the factory TB, because you have, I'm going to call it the dead zone, where the blade is moving, it's doing what it's supposed to do. You're giving throttle to the left, to the right pedal, and your computer is opening your throttle blade. But unfortunately, you're not seeing any more air. But your foot is pushing down, and you're expecting to feel something, and you're feeling very little to nothing because you haven't really uncovered any real air yet. And then you finally push, and then, oh, now there we go. Now I feel something, right? So you have this wonky,
Right.
unlinear feel to the throttle, right? With my design, you've got a little bit of airflow at 10%, a little more airflow at 20%, a little more airflow at 30%, a little more airflow at 40%. It's linear. So now when you give it throttle, you're actually getting an input back from the engine. So it's a more intuitive feel, it's a more responsive feel, and like as soon as you just whack the throttle just a little bit, it's gonna zing up much quicker. The tip-in throttle,
Right.
I call it tip-in. I mean, that's what I call it, right? Driving down the road, you're in whatever gear, fifth gear, let's say. You're not going that fast. You're cruising at say 2,300 RPM, and traffic opens up a little bit. You don't really need to go to the next gear, but you want to accelerate a little, maybe to pass somebody. you just, when I say tip in, you just push in on the throttle a little bit so you don't have to downshift or what have you, and then the car just scoots out, right? With the factory TB, the tip in
Right.
is horrible because you're in that dead zone still of the throttle body. So
Right.
this is going to give
Right.
you more of that
Right.
tip in. It makes the car just more usable, more functional, more intuitive. It just drives the way your brain is wired to think it should. You know,
Well, you want, I mean, the Z06, first of all, the driving experience is like amazing, right? And you want the throttle to match the sound that's coming from that
right,
engine because it just sounds incredible. And I like that you said that because not everybody runs these cars wide out like all the time. I mean, you take them, there's daily driving, not they're not daily drivers. I mean, you could, I guess, but when I take it out on the weekends or whenever, you want the response when I'm not going 100 miles an hour, I'm going through
right,
traffic
right.
and I do need a little kick or I need, like I want to pass somebody. You want that. And there is some lag time in the car. I mean, I've owned enough to know and
Yep.
understand that it's sometimes it doesn't do what you tell it to do
It
right
does
away,
not. It
you know?
because of this exact
So
situation. So, in fact, the
right,
I feel like this is one of the best mods out there for almost the opposite reason of your typical mod. Everybody mods cars typically for more power, more performance, but it's usually at the top end of the range. The beauty about this
right,
TB is what it does to all your drivability. Like, so your peak power gains and stuff is something that when you buy more power, whether you're buying heads or this or that or camshafts or whatever it might be, headers, right? Where you're buying more power to really appreciate what you just spent on that mod, you have to go wide open throttle. So the reality
right,
is, let's be real, unless this is a track car, most guys are only going wide open throttle for what, 3% of their ownership, 5%? Even think about it, right? How much you're driving is wide open. It's a tiny percentage.
right.
The the beauty of this
Exactly.
mod is it enhances the 97% of your driving, and it still gives you that extra oomph up top. This is worth about 15 rear wheel horsepower. So the car will be faster, you will have more power, but that's not the reason to buy the mod. The reason to buy this mod is for all of that par throttle goodness and responsiveness. That's what I want to buy this car.
Right, right. And I think again, for people like me out there who are probably 90% of the, Z06 or Corvette owners who have the cars because they love the car and aren't sure what to do and don't want to spend a ton of money or avoid their warranty. I think this is like you said, the number one mod to do right away. It just
100%.
makes all the sense in the
100%.
world. So, well, again, I know you're super busy. I really appreciate you getting on with me tonight. I know, we were kind of like, wanted to move it, but I couldn't move it because I had all these available because, come tomorrow, they're going to be
That's
installed.
good.
And
It's
it,
I would have been busy the next time we talked anyway. So I
right.
wear a
So,
lot of hats here.
again,
So
thank you. No, I understand. And thank you so much. And again, this has been extremely interesting and informative. And, just learning about your background, for a while, you're kind of like, I was trying to search you on the internet even. And like, it's a mystery guy that, I'm trying to figure, who this guy is. And so, I know Brandon's Garage really like kind of, I saw some things, but I want to learn for myself. And I'm really appreciate the fact that you even emailed me back and we, talked and you texted me. And I mean, that says a lot for who you are and your company as a whole with the customer service that you're providing and the fact that you stand behind your product. And like you said, you're very passionate about this and, when you're passionate about something, great results come
it's
about.
almost by
Right.
almost
And
by
so,
accident.
right. And I'm excited. Again to get all this put on my car because I love this
When
stuff, but I'm really excited to try
when's
this
the
out.
install? You doing that? You're doing that soon, right?
I'm doing it actually. So I bring it in tomorrow and I believe they're starting on some of the suspension. I'm lowering, the Paragon, lowering springs and things like that, that make the car stiffer and more responsive, spacers. And then the next day they're doing the Venturi and they're doing the throttle body.
Cool.
So it's a 2-day kind of ordeal that I'm going through. So I'm excited though, cause it's aesthetic and performance all in 2 days.
That's great. Yeah, no, you're gonna be real happy
Yeah.
with it. And yeah, I really don't do a good enough job marketing my company, to be honest. I'm so busy creating products and building products, shipping products. It's something it's really something I need to get on more. But thankfully I keep busy enough. So but hey, a little more business is always a good thing. And
Right.
Um,
Well, hopefully this will, put some eyes, on the company
right.
because again, it's just you have a lot of people talking about one product and not really understanding
Yeah,
the
and,
other. And, you know,
to my competition's credit, I guess they've done a fantastic job marketing, 100%. Also, they're very focused. They do throttle bodies. That's it. I mean, my
right,
claim to fame is cylinder heads and induction systems, complete combinations. I'm very good at TVs also, but it's just a facet of my business. Um, I think my true passion is more hardcore, like cylinder head. All my I have a whole bunch of different lines of custom GM cylinder heads. LS1,
right.
LT1, LS2, LS7. I sell LS7s a lot now. I'm like a kind of an expert in that field, and I really enjoy the LS7 platform. I own a C6 Z06. Uh, but my point
Okay.
is like I do so many other things. It's. I think if I was more focused, it would be easier to get the word out. But I'm so spread around. But anyway, I do appreciate
Right.
the opportunity to have spoken with you, and looking forward to your feedback.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be great. And then, like I said, all those people were at Carlisle, and I'm new to kind of like that, and I know next year it's definitely a place I want to go, and hopefully, I'll have a lot of good feedback and discuss this and get the word out about what you're doing and how good these TBs really are and why you're kind of separated yourself from the competition. And so I'm excited. I'll let you know how it goes, and hopefully maybe again we'll get back on and do like a recap or a
That'd be
follow-up
great.
of what I
Yeah, that'd be great.
experienced. And so again, I really appreciate your time and you getting on with me, and I'm excited about Friday getting it all together. And so I'll let you know how it goes and we'll kind of go from
Sounds
there.
great. I look forward to hearing back from you.